This video testimonial is sent to the Department of Energy, the Office of Clean Energy Demonstrations, and Mach 2 officials in charge of the proposed Mach 2 hydrogen hub. Members of the community are speaking to you to tell you what their concerns are and ask their questions. We hope that you will hear what they have to say and respond to their questions and listen to their concerns.
The hydrogen hub, as far as the community is concerned, we haven't released a lot about the hydrogen hub to the community because we've been locked out of the information that we need to inform ourselves and to educate the community. This Mach 2 coalition that has been created has made sure that the information that they give out is not transparent and it's not resident friendly. It seems that the meetings that they do have are primarily for businesses to do what with what we have no idea. I don't even think that they are exactly sure of how this thing is supposed to work. As you all saw from the presentation that Tracy just made, this thing is kind of like all over the place. And it's a lot of different communities that will be impacted. And there has been zero outreach to those communities to tell them what is coming exactly. And there's been no, like I said, no transparency, even for us. So, they have monthly meetings that we are not welcome to because, we have to pay to go to them. They just had a summit that charged basically $1,000 a day for you to attend. Well, if you're talking about a community like Chester, that's a whole lot of money. So our perspective is that right now we are fighting the unknown. We are fighting to get pertinent information. What part of this is going to land where? What part of this is going to impact Chester? If you're talking about Marcus Hook, well, heck, you could walk into Marcus Hook from Chester in a matter of 2 or 3 minutes. So we have to be very diligent about this thing that they're proposing to put in our communities using existing infrastructure. Well, then that means that this will be a continuation of environmental racism because all of the infrastructures primarily run in low-income Black and Brown communities. So how do we combat that? We combat it through collaboration with different organizations such as Delaware Riverkeepers Network, and the other communities across the state who have fought fracking and the pipelines. We all have to come together to fight these things off now more than ever, because we know that this new administration is going to be pro-polluters. So we're not quite sure how this is going to impact us, but anything that is going to increase the amount of pollution, anything that's going to contribute to greenhouse gases, these are not people friendly. And right now we're living in a human sacrifice zone, in my opinion. We are in a community that should be protected and not further polluted. We represent a community of human beings, and we want to be treated with decency, some dignity, and some equality, and some fairness. Fairness. We don't ask for anything different from anybody else. We are the community of human beings, and we should matter more than the polluters, more than somebody's profits. We have a saying, people over profits, people over pollution. Nothing about us without us, and that's what our motto should be. We're not here to make friends. We're here to try to save some lives.
I am here on behalf of Circle and C4, and my concern is that Chester is an environmental justice community. It is home to the largest trash incinerator in the United States, and there is a hydrogen hub proposed to be placed in Chester, Pennsylvania, but there has been limited transparency on what hydrogen hubs are. So my question is, why is there an $1,000, $2,000 paywall on summits such as these, preventing residents from having a seat at the table or a conversation if hydrogen hubs are such good things for climate change?
Yeah, I'd want to know why the people that are inside making a lot of decisions about what happens to this community are inside behind paywalled rooms that public members can't get into unless they pay to play. And realistically, this notion about where these hydrogen hubs are going to be placed doesn't really involve the communities that they're going to be placed in. They don't have a say in being able to say no. There's no information about where the funding is going to come until it is already awarded. And after those decisions are made, these things are just going to happen to communities. It's been advertised as this green, bountiful resource that's going to help change the world, but we know it's not going to be based fully on renewables when it starts, which means it's going to continue cementing in not only existing dangers from fossil fuels, but the systemic and long-term compounded harms that have been placed upon communities by individuals with power and money. And realistically, at the end of the day, that's only going to further disadvantage individuals, peoples, communities that don't have a say in what is happening to them. And so we're out here with members of the community because the more people learn about how masked this is, how wicked it can be, and how locked up it is inside the systems of power, that they're joining us out in the streets to say, hey, we don't want this to happen to us. This is supposed to be happening with us, for us, and by us, and instead you're creating another system of replicating past harms. And we're out here to say no.
I'm South Jersey organizer for New Jersey Food and Water Watch, and we are very concerned about Mach 2 and the hydrogen hub projects. It's been unclear where these projects will even be located in South Jersey. There's been no engagement with South Jersey communities. We've heard that they want to reuse existing infrastructure in environmental justice communities, perhaps. And yeah, we want more clarity, and we want to know how this is going to impact, the people of South Jersey and South Jersey towns. Originally there was information on the Mach 2 website that said South Jersey meeting TBA, but that was removed. So there's literally been no engagement with South Jersey about what this project might mean. There's no sites that are available. There's been talk of a so-called hydrogen highway, which certainly would include points across South Jersey, but we have no information. So we don't know. Are people going to be living along the route that hydrogen could be transported, or pipelines? There's literally been no community engagement, and Mach 2 has said simply before shovels are in the ground, they'll talk to the community, which of course is not a fair way to deal with the public.
And I'm mainly concerned about why community members are being left out of this conversation. There's a common phrase, nothing about us without us. And I think it's ridiculous that people are being forced to pay a bunch of money, like up to $1,000, $2,000, just to have a seat at the table and have input on a large project that's going to have devastating consequences for their community. So I come from an engineering background, and I think like a lot of the other people protesting this, there are obviously big environmental concerns, safety concerns, and then it's just really disheartening to see the lack of transparency that Mach 2 has has held. They're saying, oh, it's going to be so great, it's going to help the economy, but they're not really giving us any evidence of how they're going to be regulating these large projects, making sure that they are safe, making sure that they benefit everybody in the community, and making sure that the risks and benefits are balanced out.
MACH 2 is a hydrogen hub planned to impact southeast Pennsylvania, Delaware, and central and southern New Jersey. Chester City is one of many environmentally overburdened communities likely in the MACH 2 footprint. Chester City is 5 miles from Philadelphia. Chester City is bankrupt, potentially becoming disincorporated, managed by a state-appointed administrator. Chester is bankrupt due to decades of government corruption that put the friends and families of politicians above the residents and taxpayers of the city of Chester. This corruption continually added polluting industries, resulting in a city with 40% of our children having asthma, the largest incinerator in the country with the fewest pollution control devices, which has hundreds of trucks idling for hours daily to drop off waste and pick up toxic ash. A city with sewage that is burnt. Chester has been prostituted for pollution. The federal government created tax incentives and grants for hydrogen hubs like MACH 2, with our money going to the same polluting companies that have shortened our lives and worsened our health. MACH 2 adds pollution sources. MACH 2 is expected to take 8 to 12 years to create new infrastructure, new markets, and a new hydrogen economy. It could be 12 years until industry or consumers could choose to use hydrogen energy over fossil fuels on a meaningful scale. Federal regulations are lacking. MACH 2 doesn't know what materials will be allowed in existing pipelines to transport hydrogen. MACH 2 does not know what locations and technologies will be part of MACH 2. Not knowing the technologies or having even decided which sites would be part of MACH 2, no one can know how much an additional cost would be passed on to utility ratepayers and taxpayers. If this project is granted $750 million, it might take 12 years to know if the project is a complete failure, at which time the project might be too big to fail, discard, or cancel.
Yeah, I have many questions about this hydrogen hub. We've actually been left in the dark. Communities impacted, the public in general. But two of my questions are this. One is, where exactly are these different projects involved in the MACH 2 hydrogen hub going to be? We've been given the general location of several of them, but we know there's going to be more producers and consumers than we're being told about. And where exactly will these sites be? And what pipeline easements are going to be used for transporting dangerous hydrogen and CO2 through our communities? And then my other question is, for this supposedly green hydrogen that's going to be produced in MACH 2, where is all of this renewable energy going to come from? Is it going to be on site? Is this going to be new builds? Or, and we've been told this, MACH 2 is going to be pulling some of the renewable energy from the grid. And here in Pennsylvania, our grid is woefully undersupplied by renewable energy. It's less than 10%. So how much of this precious renewable energy is MACH 2 going to be pulling from the grid to use to produce green hydrogen, which is really an inefficient use of that resource?
You have safety concerns?
I do have many safety concerns related to the transportation and the consumption and even the production of green hydrogen. I live in a community where in Chester County, where there are a lot of pipelines, a lot of pipeline easements, and it's densely populated. So we would be putting dangerous hydrogen pipelines potentially through these communities. We would be transporting by truck hydrogen right here in Philadelphia to fuel these SEPTA buses that they're talking about using. Those are just two of the safety concerns. This whole Mach 2 hydrogen hub, like the other hydrogen hubs, is cloaked in secrecy. There has been a disturbing lack of transparency on this project. I filed a request for the final application that was submitted by Mach 2 to the Department of Energy over a year and a half ago under the Freedom of Information Act, and I am still trying to get anything but a heavily redacted response. And it's like, it's jumping through hoops. I've never seen anything like this, and it seems to just be delay. And in the meanwhile, we're just left in the dark over this project. We want answers.
Hi, my name is Annika Van Rossum, and I live in Delaware County, and I am extremely concerned about the Mach 2 hydrogen hub and the public process that has been laid out. At this point in time, the community and the public at large is not engaged in the Mach 2 hydrogen hub decision-making, planning process, or anything that the federal government has put out. If people want to go to meetings, they have to pay to attend. They are done during the workday, so people would have to actually miss work and may have to find childcare to be able to go and be involved in what should be an open public process, and what from day one has been promised by the federal government to be an inclusive and open public process. And they have sorely fallen down on the federal process, as well as the Mach 2 hydrogen hub, who is supposed to be carrying out community meetings. And this is also not fair and upsetting because many of the requirements and guidance for how the Mach 2 hydrogen hub should be engaging the community is actually laid out in the guidelines set out by the Office of Clean Energy Demonstration. So it's right there for them to read to understand how they can engage the public. And yet we have seen little to no public engagement, and more so public exclusion at a very large and upsetting scale. Hydrogen is a false climate solution. Hydrogen is going to keep us tied to fossil fuels. And just as we are promised that natural gas was the bridge fuel to clean energy, that's what they're trying to do with hydrogen right now. And I think we all know it will just revert back to us continuing to being stuck on fossil fuels rather than moving towards a clean, renewable energy future that we desperately need right now.
I'm Rachel Dawn Davis, Public Policy and Justice Organizer for Water Spirit. Water is the source and sustainer of all life. Without it, humanity cannot survive on sacred earth. In areas already facing water scarcity, how can we justify a hydrogen hub that consumes massive amounts of precious, dwindling fresh water for an inefficient energy system? With the climate crisis and a current drought warning in the Northeast, what steps are being taken to mitigate the ecological consequences of this water usage? Why should we invest in hydrogen hubs, which require enormous energy inputs and fail to deliver long-term efficiency, when cleaner, sustainable solutions like wind and solar are ready to scale? What moral responsibility do companies have to prioritize long-term sustainability over wishful short-term profits? With climate crisis and resource depletion, namely water, becoming increasingly urgent and ever apparent, why would companies continue investing in hydrogen hubs which fail to provide clean, renewable energy? What's the economic logic behind investing in an unproven, risky system that is ultimately inefficient and consumes more resources than it returns? Why don't communities have the right to refusal of these false solutions? Why aren't companies like Mach 2 Energy investing in scalable, community-based, renewable energy systems that empower local communities and provide clean, sustainable energy? Why aren't community-led projects being considered when they've proven to be efficient and sustainable? Why has there been no comprehensive environmental and economic analysis of the potential harms of hydrogen hubs taken seriously, especially with two already approved now? How can we trust these projects won't exacerbate the problems they claim to solve and endanger the very people they're meant to serve.
Hi, I'm Karen Ferridan from Berks Gas Truth in Berks County, Pennsylvania. I'm also the co-founder of the Better Path Coalition and the No False Climate Solutions PA groups. I'm really frustrated with you, OSED, because I'm trying to figure out since last October where exactly I fit into all of this, where my community fits into all of this. I'm, like I said, in Berks County. I'm only a few miles away from Philadelphia. And while I'm not in one of the host communities, as far as I understand it to be defined right now, I could easily be affected by infrastructure build out that would have to be built to accommodate the various hub projects. And so why would I not be a host community? And in the grander sense, any of us who are going to suffer from the increased emissions that would come from this project, we're all going to be affected by it. Climate is everybody's NIMBY issue. And so I'm very concerned about that. But, I've been frustrated all along that we know so little. Even those people who are directly affected and already know that they know nothing. Why have you not been sharing information with us? I want to know everything that you know. I want to know everything you don't know. And I think everybody deserves that kind of level of engagement. So those are my real concerns, but I'm really wondering at what point you're going to finally engage the communities, and if it's after everything has already been decided and it's time to just start issuing permits. Frankly, that's too late. And so I expect much better of you going forward. Thank you for your time.
My name is Karen Melton. I live in Northwest Philadelphia, and I have so many concerns about the Mach 2 project. First of all, I question the entire premise for the amount of hydrogen development being financed by the Inflation Reduction Act. I think it's possible hydrogen may be an appropriate way to fuel certain industries that are hard to electrify. Steel is one that's often mentioned, but it's clear enough that the gas industry simply sees hydrogen production as another way to support the methane gas industry while getting even more billions in government subsidies than it already does. And the idea that Mach 2 is going to be green, meaning the huge amount of energy it takes to extract hydrogen from water will be clean energy, just seems preposterous. There is no source of surplus clean energy available. The city of Philadelphia has had to contract for the building of large-scale solar farms to help meet its emissions reduction goals. And in the bits of information we have been able to get about Mach 2, there is no indication of where all this clean energy could come from, or that they are planning to contract for building new clean energy sources. They say they're committed to Mach 2 being green, but it appears this is just a bait and switch tactic. At some point, they'll announce there isn't enough clean energy available, and this will just become another methane gas hub. And that's one of the many reasons that I am concerned about Mach 2.
My name is Ken Dolsky, and I am a member of the steering committee of Empower New Jersey. And I have been working on, environmental and climate issues for a number of years, mostly stopping bad projects. And I have been closely watching the evolution of, efforts to use hydrogen. And there are many problems, but the two of the biggest problems that I see with hydrogen is first, its use is largely based on claims of decarbonization. And those are mainly false. Hydrogen is an indirect greenhouse gas because it slows down the decomposition of methane, which itself is a powerful greenhouse gas that captures 86 times more heat than carbon dioxide does over a 20-year period. And methane is responsible for about a third of global warming. So prolonging the life of methane is really bad. That's what hydrogen does. As a result, hydrogen has been shown to be about 100 times more powerful than carbon dioxide at capturing heat over a 10-year period. And as many of us know, hydrogen also leaks much more easily than any other element. and it leaks like 3 times as much as methane, which means it's roughly 3 times as bad as methane for the climate. So, while using it in a fuel cell produces no CO2, and everybody loves that, the process to get there is very, very fraught and negative for the climate, and will frankly only make climate change worse. The more hydrogen we use, you can bet that climate is going to get worse. And the government has totally ignored this in its models. And that's, and the government models also ignore the high leakage rate. So, the government is basically lying to us about this quote value of decarbonization and doing everything it can to make hydrogen look as attractive as possible. Which kind of leads me to the second big problem that I have, is that the whole effort, excuse me, to find ways to use hydrogen is not rational. This is not the way a rational market evolves, like say, cell phones. It is not based on economics, and it's not based on good science. It's not based on good climate science. It is very obvious that it is simply a function of the money that the US government is making available to the industry and the resulting feeding frenzy amongst all the participants to get a share of it, which distorts their common sense and the accuracy of the data that they choose to review or they choose to use. Green hydrogen is far too expensive, and everybody agrees on that, for almost all applications today. But the industry can only get the government's money if they basically ignore that and proceed as if in the next year or two, the cost is going to magically come down by like 80%. And what we've already seen is that a number of projects have been canceled because that's what happens when the real costs are being incurred. Once you've built the project and you're actually operating it and you find out how costly it is, that's when the cancellation takes place, which is crazy, which means people aren't really using the right parameters when they plan these projects. But that's what happens when you have a bubble and when everybody's running after the money. So I would just say, simply put, for both of the reasons I described, ignoring the greenhouse gas impact and the high cost, the government has put its multiple fingers on the scale in favor of this false climate solution. And this is the expected result. Things that don't make sense, projects that have to die, people that, ignore good data and ignore common sense. And frankly, that's where I think we are now with green hydrogen in particular. So thanks for the opportunity.
Hi, my name is Laura Snyder. I'm a Delaware County and Edgemont Township resident. I am on the leadership member of Delchester United for Pipeline Safety and Marcus Hook Neighbors for Public Health, and co-founder of WASIPA, Watchdogs for Southeastern PA. My questions to the Department of Energy, OCED, regarding Mach 2 include the following. Number one, will there be cumulative impact studies to look at the combined effect of chemical and non-chemical stressors in our overburdened communities, especially in our waterfront environmental justice towns, including Marcus Hook, Chester, Trainer, and Chichester? We need cumulative impact studies to clearly investigate the proposed increase in toxic and noxious air and water pollution from Mach 2. The asthma rate for children in Chester, PA is already 4 times higher than the national average. How much more pollution can these children tolerate? Number two, per the map of Mach 2 infrastructure obtained through our right to know request, there appears to be hydrogen storage tanks on the map in Edgemont, my community, Glen Mills, Springfield, Swarthmore, etc. in Delaware County. What is the blast zone for a leak of these proposed hydrogen storage tanks? Who has prepared our emergency plan? And when will this be presented to the public? Along with hydrogen storage will come an abundance of CO2 pipelines with Mach 2. Will our volunteer fire companies be fully equipped with electric fire trucks and emergency vehicles to respond to a CO2 pipeline leak? As we experienced during the CO2 Satarsha, Mississippi leak, the CO2 will stall and shut off any gas engines. So electric vehicles are the only emergency response vehicles that will function under these circumstances. How will our aquifers in Edgemont be protected from hydrogen leaks and CO2 pipeline leaks? When CO2 leaks, it turns to carbonic acid. We all have private wells as our sole water source in Western Edgemont. How will you ensure our aquifer protection with Mach 2 buildout? And when will this be presented to us? When will the Delaware County Community College Mach 2 information meeting that was abruptly canceled this past fall be rescheduled to inform the Delco community of the Mach 2 plans? Why are the only Mach 2 meet and greet meetings currently geared toward industry to benefit financially from Mach 2 and require payment to join? How are community members to learn of the infrastructure plans at a true free public meeting? When will this be rescheduled at no cost to the public to attend? Thank you, and I look forward to receiving some answers on this very expensive, elusive, taxpayer, environmentally flawed, and appears to be dangerous project. Thank you.